Anyway, there was an awesome screen title there, but the camera missed it, so we'll just move on. So for those that have never seen Screen, first encounter can be a life-altering experience. Screen is awesome, okay? You'll never think about the terminal the same way after you see this presentation, I promise. All right. So basically, back here in this first slide, let me point a few things out. I actually have 4 terminal windows open. This is awesome, okay? So there's one, and there's the other. So I have it split right down the middle. And the display from one is up there at the top, display from the other is in the bottom. Now, if you're creative, you can think of a whole bunch of really cool things you can do with this, right? Like, for example, you can look at one file in the top screen there and compare it to a different one in the bottom, if you don't know about VMDiff, which is an awesome utility for a different presentation. If I need to relocate, I can exit from my session and then pull it up verbatim after I've gone home or run out of my apartment, which is on fire or whatever. So the other thing I can do is so the other thing I can do is I can copy and paste between the 2 terminals I have there. Screen actually supports this. Even if you don't have a mouse, you can copy and paste, which is pretty cool. All right. So how do you use it? Well, the first thing you do is you run Screen. And then if you haven't done anything to it, you'll probably get a copyright notice, and then it'll go right back to the terminal, which really isn't all that exciting. It's like, okay, wow, what did this do? So what you do then is you run a command, and then you hold Control, you press A, and then you press C. And what it'll do is it'll make another terminal for you. And it'll just replace the first one in its entirety. The first one will go away, you won't be able to see it anymore. It might be scary because you're like, dude, what happened to my window? But it's still there. So what you do is you hold Control and then you press N, or you hold Control and then you press P, or you hold Control and press A, and then you hold Control and you press A again. But basically what it'll do is it'll flip back and forth between the 2 windows for you. So another thing you can do, remember that little red split I had on the first slide? Well, the way you do that is that you hold Control, you press A, and then you hold Shift and you press S. And that'll split the window in 2, right down the middle, vertically. You can also do it horizontally if you hold Control, press A, and then you press the little pipe bar. Okay, let's see here. You can also give each window a name.
So does it always split them evenly, or does it split like on where the cursor currently is, or?
I think it always splits them evenly, but I could be wrong. And then let's see here. If you hold Control, press A, and then you press W, it'll list all the open windows. Kind of cool. All right. So let's add a little bit of awesomeness. Because every time you start Screen, you don't want to have to go through all of this garbage of getting all your windows set up, all your terminals set up, all your sessions set up. So what you do is you write a file, call it a .screen.rc. And so what Screen does when it starts is it'll look inside of your home directory and try to find this .screen.rc file. If it can find it, then what it'll do is it'll run all of the commands it sees in that file. So what I can do then is I can add commands to make each of these 4 tabs pop up when I run the Screen, which is kind of cool. And I can also make it do cool things like display the date over here, bottom right-hand corner. I can make the windows look like real tabs, which is actually something I copied and pasted from Server Fault because I was too lazy to figure out how to do that on my own. So let's see here. The other thing that's kind of cool that you can do is you can bind commands. So like for example, if you want to make Control-A, then press V to launch Vim, you can do that. And you can make these commands really, really complicated. So it can save you a lot of typing. The other thing you can do, if you were really adventurous, is you can make a key binding to launch another session of Screen with a different configuration file so that you could have a screen inside of a screen. And you can do that a lot of times.
Question.
Yeah.
This is a, I don't know, this might be a stupid question, but because I've never used Screen, but I have used like virtual desktop software and things like Spaces. Is Screen kind of like a virtual desktop setup? Or I guess
Think of,
What do
it
you
more,
mean by-
think of Screen as more like having like Windows Server and being able to remote desktop with the admin option, so that if you got disconnected, whatever you were working on is still there.
Yeah, so basically it takes that SSH session you have open, or whatever session, and it just saves it to a file. And then when you reconnect and you run Screen again, it'll go and find that file, and then it'll reconnect to it.
so. These aren't like local kind of. These are our remote screens.
Yes.
Okay.
So you could connect
know.
to Prime and run them there, or you could connect to some kind of device and run them there. I mean, basically this is a really nice tool for server admins. Okay, so a quick use case for Screen. You're logged into a mission-critical server in Columbus running a huge set of updates, and your neighbor decides to dig where he shouldn't, and you lose your telephone or cable connection, which is really bad because then you have to drive all the way to Columbus with many cases of Mountain Dew to fix it. Another use case is that you're an overworked TA with lots of CS 544 projects to create. And grading needs A+ simultaneous SSH connections. So what you can do is you can build a Screen session to automatically SSH to all of the required machines and run a test script, and you're done grading a project, which is cool.
If only it were that easy.
So, quick demonstration. All right. Let's go ahead and pull this up. All right. Quick catch here. I have, this is using the same set of settings that I was using to generate that screenshot on the first slide. So if you'll notice, some terminal emulators, like for example PuTTY, might get a little bit confused. So if you look down here, you see this blank gray tab. That actually should have something inside of it. Like for example, if I switch to another window, hey look. Well actually I just switched from another window because that was the name of the window, but that's okay. So yeah, there are glitches. Make sure that you test your settings on the machine you want to run them on in your desired terminal emulator before you actually, depend on them. Because if you try to run them and you haven't tested them, then it could really mess you up. Alright, so quick test. So notice I'm switching tabs, I'm holding control, pressing A, and pressing M. So let's go ahead and run Vim in this tab. Hey look, there's Vim. Oh wait, where did it go? It just switched to another window. Ah, crap. Okay, so switch back. Hey look, there it is, right where I left it. So now it's really cool. Hold control, press A, and then I press D. See how it says detached? What that means is that you're no longer connected to a Screen session, right? So remember how I said Screen basically stores everything in a file so that you can get back to it right where you left it? So that means what you've done is you basically disconnected from that file or from that socket or whatever Screen uses. So then what you can do, figure out which sessions are open. You can type Screen space -ls. So for list, remember, like this is just like the Unix command that'll list all the files in a directory, except instead of listing all the files in the directory, you're going to list all of the open Screen sessions. So in this case, you can see that I have one called 17065.ttys0, but whatever. There are options that you can give to Screen to actually give names to each of these sessions, so that it's a little bit easier to remember, what's what. If you're a system admin or you have a lot of machines open or whatever, you can figure out which one you want to reconnect to. So, other thing is there are a lot of shortcuts. If I do this, it'll automatically pick one to reconnect to. Normally, that'll be the one that you most, it's actually kind of random. But the other thing you can do, let's see here, char, and then 17065.ttys0. Hey look, there it is. Okay. And if this were on a remote machine, then I would demonstrate disconnecting from it and reconnecting to it, but hopefully you guys get the idea. So, any questions so far? Good.
How do you install it?
Build it.
Like sudo apt-get install?
You can do that too.
When I bring it down?
Or yum install or whatever package manager you're using.
Does it come on Cygwin? Or like, would you use it
Yes.
on Cygwin and stuff?
No. Okay.
Oh, I don't need to use Cygwin. Okay.
All right. So, Screen is incredibly versatile. So basically, I would highly suggest using Google and reading a little bit about it and trying to figure out how to use it. I mean, it's a really cool tool. And I would recommend finding a really good .screen RC on the internet, just because to get those cool tabs and timestamps and all of that on each of those splits in your screen, there's some really black magic required. The commands aren't exactly all that readable, so you can spend time figuring it out yourself, but it might be easier if you did. As far as a good command reference goes, there's one right down there. It lists all of the basic commands, and feel free to check it out. If you check the Facebook page for this presentation, I have a link to these slides. There should be a new version of the slides up, or the slides I'm using to present tonight, but if there's not, yell at me either on the Facebook page or through chat or somebody, and I'll fix it.
The Facebook page would probably be harder to find once the event expires. So
Okay.
using another form is probably better.
Okay. So,
Is there an OU ACM group, like a Facebook group?
There isn't. That's probably a good idea. Probably.
You just cost him a bunch of work.
Well, they've got that new create groups feature, so maybe that's easy. I don't know.
Click.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I'll try that out.
You don't get a like.
Because right now I've just got a invites list. It's got 35 people in it, so I make an event. Invite all these people. And several people have declined every presentation, but they took an invite.
Mark's
Alright.
still, he's still, maybe attending, not replied.
maybe we should ask him that. Okay, so anyway, slides will be somewhere. So let's go ahead and talk about exporting real quick. And I have to apologize. I had handouts that I was planning on giving, but I forgot to print them, so I was brain dead a little bit. But that's okay. They're in handy PDF form, really, really close to where this presentation is. Same directory. So those will, there will be a link posted to that. At the same time, there's a link posted to these slides. So,
I can even try embedding the those slides in the video too, like the handout and stuff.
okay, if you want.
I'll try my hand.
Okay, see how it goes. Okay, so X window. So X is a system designed to present a graphical user interface to the user. Sorry. Basically, it is designed to work over a network connection, which, this was built way back when, so this was a really cool concept, right? This was brilliant. Everybody loved it, except for security people who actually kind of hated it. But in any case, Xorg and X386 are currently the two most popular free versions of X. And one way to connect to an X server is to connect to it over a network. So let's talk about how to do that. And I guess that is called X forwarding, because what we're doing is, how many of you were here for the SSH presentation? Okay. So a few of you, but basically, inside of PuTTY, there's an option that says X11 forwarding, and so we're going to enable that. We're going to install an X server on our own machine, and then when we run it, it'll forward all of the X11 windows to our own computer. So that's kind of cool. Let's talk about that. Okay, brief note. I was originally targeting Windows users, but I'm not anymore. I was going to give a presentation on the Mac, but I may still try to hook it up real quick and do that just to show it. On Linux, really simple. SSH-Y, then wherever you're going, and so long as the remote server has an X server running, if you try to launch something like XBlock, it should just magically appear on your computer. not much involved there. OSX users can do the same thing. You can use SSH-Y, and it seems to work okay. And I just hit the arrow on the wrong keyboard. Okay, so before we can forward an X connection, we need to do a few things. So first thing we need to do, we need to install an X server on our machine. Now, good X server for Windows that is free is called Xmig. I mean, the other thing you can do is you can install Cygwin and include X11 in your Cygwin install, and that will essentially perform the same function. But that tends to be a little bit heavier weight, just because there's like a few hundred megabytes of stuff that comes along with Cygwin. And so if you do it with something like Xmig, you won't necessarily need that. What's up?
So that's a local X server you have to install on your client.
Yes.
Okay.
Because in order to display this windows, the client needs to know what to do with all of this graphical data it's getting from the server. So that's why you need to have an X server running on your own machine. Next thing is that I would recommend installing PuTTY, but I think SSH Secure Shell can do it too. I have no idea how, so you're on your own. And then you configure PuTTY to forward all the X stuff to the X server running on your own machine. Alright, so back to forwarding. This presentation covers using Xmig and PuTTY. And there would have been a handout coming your way. I am so sorry. So, and let's see here. Can we do this really quick? Alright, we are going to do this. Hey, maybe I won't. Cool. Alright. So, yeah, the problem with trying to give demonstrations on the fly is that sometimes they don't work. So I'll try to find an updated link to Xmig. I can do a quick Google, probably after the presentations, if you guys want to see how to do this.
Cygwin has an X server built in, right?
Yes.
So you could try it from Cygwin? Is Cygwin installed on there?
I don't think so.
I thought I saw it on the one upstairs that had it. You may have it wrong.
Okay, SQL / this.
Then on OS 10, I think you could just use X11. It comes with it, right?
Yeah, I think it's built in,
Mhm.
or you can install it really easily.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, these people are brilliant. Alright. So, new session. Alright. Check this out, alright? Are you guys ready for awesome?
He knows
X11. We want to enable X11 forwarding. Let's go back to our session. Make sure I get this right name. Yes, I promise I trust it. By the way, this is the cool Prime server. This one has like 16 cores and all of them are really fast, so you can build them in a few seconds if you use this. Whereas V1 will take you days. So let's go ahead and do X clock. Hey look!
And that's just that.
X clock is running and it's forwarding all of the drawing it's doing to our local machine. So that's the way to do it. Alright, well, how about something more heavyweight? So, but yeah, see, this is going to demonstrate why you don't forward big things through X. It takes forever and day.
It's a little bit better if you enable the compression.
Kind of. Yeah, that's actually not bad. If you try to do this through a cable modem at home, for example, it will be bad. But I could go ahead and create a new project if I wanted to or whatever, but I'm not going to do that. Yes, there will be next one. Okay. So that's some kind of cool stuff you can do with exporting.
Now, where would the file be created that you created in Eclipse?
It will be created on the remote system.
So it's on PX.
Yes, so you are actually working on PX1 when you do this. Like for example, if I wanted to access Safari and I didn't know how to do SSH forwarding, I could actually start an instance of Firefox and forward all of the information from PX1 to my local machine, and then I'm actually browsing the web through Firefox from PX1. So start a session. Hey look, here we go. Hey look, I'm PX1! Okay. So, cool stuff. You can abuse it horribly if you want to, but I would suggest you don't because you will face the wrath of Tisco. So.
I don't want to be all annoying with all these questions, but what's the benefit? Because I know, like for SSH, we learned how to like tunnel our traffic through P1, for example, for Firefox,
Yes.
so that if we wanted to go to like ACM.org or the IEEE paper repository, we could get papers. Well, and you can kind of do the same thing with this. I guess, is there a benefit to doing this versus just
No,
doing
if you can
SSH?
tunnel your web traffic, you want to do it the SSH tunnel way. That was just to prove that that was actually exported. But don't do that, okay? You'll make your network connection very sad, and you'll be very sad because things will be very slow, and it will just be terrible. So, that is a very good point.
So one good use is if you have some process on a remote server, you need to run a command, but it pops up an X window or GUI window. You can do it that way headless. So the other server doesn't have to have a monitor on or anything.
So, if you have like a rack of 20 machines that don't have any monitors attached, you can do that too, which is kind of
Or even for a laptop.
cool. Or that, yeah.
It's been run over by a car. That was never yours. I still have that. It's still good. No, it's in serious peril. It's decided that the car has won. It sort of works.
Hey, it put up a pretty good fight.
It did. It had a long 6 months. Oh, it's been dying.
All right, so one last section, and hopefully the pizza will be getting here soon. But VNC. So, stands for Virtual Network Connection, and it is a relatively old, around about 20 years, protocol used to connect to remote machines. It's basically like you're actually sitting in front of the remote keyboard, whereas with X11, you're actually transmitting all the data the client needs to recreate the windows locally. So it's a little bit different. Basically, naive VNC is just taking a whole bunch of screenshots of the machine you want to be using really, really fast, compressing them all, sending them over the network, and then rebuilding them on your machine. Which means that if you really don't want to use VNC to play games or do anything like that. So, what kind of flavors are there of VNC? Well, there is real VNC, which is mostly free. There's Tight VNC, which is an alternate free client. There is Chicken of the VNC, which is an OS X VNC client. And then, of course, there is Remote Desktop. Okay, real quick, slight tangent. What is the difference between Remote Desktop and VNC? Well, go for it.
VNC, you actually like remote control the desktop, and like it's still logged on, and you're moving the mouse across their screen. Whereas remote desktop, you're creating another session and logging into that session.
Yes. Now, from a protocol perspective, what could maybe Remote Desktop do that VNC wouldn't be able to? Any ideas?
Fast.
Yes.
You can mount drives and printers and other devices attached to the server computer onto your client.
Yeah. That's... I was more talking about like from a low-level protocol perspective. Like, what does Microsoft building its own desktop protocol give you over just using generic VNC? So,
Encryption.
yes. That's a really good answer. Well,
Speed and encryption.
that is, yes, speed. That's a very good thing. Because Windows knows exactly what it's going to be sending through its own protocol, right? So that means when you go to actually compress the data and send it through the network, the amount of data that it's sending relatively is going to be a whole lot smaller. Unfortunately, like Corey was saying, if you use it, then people will know you're using it, and they will probably hack you and kill your machine. So, well, they might, if you're not using encryption. So, use encryption. Okay, so, contrived yet useful example of VNC. Let's say you forgot to bring your paper on the dangers of dihydrogen monoxide with you to class, and said paper is on your machine at home. Well, what you can do is you can use VNC to jump onto your home machine and get your paper to your laptop. Like, for example, if you're cool and you're running Linux on your laptop, but you're unfortunate enough to be running Windows at home, you can VNC into your Windows machine at your home, and then WinSCP from your home machine into your laptop, transfer your paper from your home machine to your laptop, and boom, you have your paper. You're not going to fail the class, provided you can find the printer. Okay, so VNC. Oh, I close the connection. All right. So, a few notes. This was working a little while ago. Well, okay. I'll tell you what it might be real quick. But just one more thing while I'm frantically trying to make this work. A lot of VNC servers and clients by default do not use encryption, which is really, really bad. So if you're going to be using VNC, a really safe thing to do is to tunnel all of your VNC traffic through SSH. Windows Remote Desktop does use encryption, but just because everybody knows about it, you're more likely to get in trouble. So regardless of which network protocol you're using to connect to your machines, I would highly recommend that you run it on a non-standard port. And if you're doing it over an insecure connection like Wi-Fi, I would highly recommend tunneling it over SSH to some machine that is closer to where you're trying to go.
So for that is VPN, like a susceptible encryption use, or?
VPN is a protocol. So that's like, VPN is if you want to pretend like another network is right at your computer. So it's kind of like SSH tunneling, but it's also not. SSH tunneling tends to be more point-to-point. It's like only one machine, whereas with a virtual private network, you want to pretend like you're on an entire network. So you want to have access to all of the machines, all of the printers, all of everything. And so then what your machine does is it takes all of the traffic that you want to send to this network you're not actually at, but you want to pretend you're on, and it'll transfer it between 2 points. And so the point that's on the network you want to be on is going to look at all of that traffic. It's going to hopefully decrypt it. I think every VPN client these days uses encryption. What kind of encryption varies. I mean, there's OpenSwan, OpenVPN. I mean, the type of encryption it's going to use is going to vary based on the program you're using. The actual protocols are generally either SSL or IPsec, if that matters.
I know from experience you can use a VPN. Like if you VPN into the network, and then from there you can VNC or RDP into any of the local computers on that network there, and it's secure from where you are because of the VPN. But on the local network over there, it might not be secure if there are other clients trying to listen in there. But your connection to that computer through the VPN is secure.
That's
So.
what I was wondering. Okay. Good explanation. Alright. And so since this seems to be failing, I guess what I'll do, how close are we to this? So we're just a few minutes away from when the presentation is scheduled to end. So since this will probably take me a few minutes to set up, I'll go ahead and end it here while we wait for pizza. And in the meantime, I will try to get my Mac displaying to this projector. and if it does, then I'll just cover a few more things, a few more demonstrations that I wasn't able to cover with the PC. But, is that cool?
Right, so I guess, one thing I've been meaning to ask, didn't think at the beginning, is getting ready to think about topics for next quarter and what people want to hear about. I've definitely had a request for makefiles. A lot of people keep complaining about how they keep being asked to have them used in class, but don't know how to do them. So I'm going to try to talk about
Well, it's
that.
alright, you can get out of undergrad without knowing how to do them.
You can. Whether
But
you
it's
do
a
it.
bad idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
Um,
yeah, he knows from
you want to give
experience.
your QT talk next quarter?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. One on QT. You want to give your network security one next quarter? Okay, class.
Maybe I'll have something more interesting
So
than last
network
time.
security. Anything else in particular people want to hear about?
Maybe something with like wireless networking.
That's sort of his network security thing is, namely breaking WEP and
Oh.
other things like that.
I was thinking more like on the wireless, kind of on the bits, you know, the stuff in the air.
So you mean like 802.11b and G and all of that?
Yeah, like the variations on a theme. Come on. We can talk about that.
Virtual machines, I know it's pretty easy with like VM Player, but how to like create them,
Okay.
like using them, stuff like that.
Perhaps more on like typical network administration.
CS 475 is a really good class to take for stuff like that. So I may put that off and just tell them to take that class. Virtual machines is a good one. Keep that in mind. I was thinking about having Scott give a talk on IP tables. He mentioned it during his SSH talk. Any other ideas people had?
What about common web programming vulnerabilities? SQL?
Wednesday is Scott Pack's Dungeons and Dragons night. Otherwise, I would normally have him come and give a talk about web vulnerabilities. So maybe I could try to move it to a different night and have him come and do that.
Dungeons and Dragons, damn it! Fucking Cheetos and Mountain Dew.
It's D&D.
Any other ideas?
Attacking the Darkness.